term generational spirit actually has two different meanings. Generational can either mean, there's a general sense in which this is taken, and that means it's any spirit that's passed from one person to another in any way. Okay. The demons aren't contagious. It's not like you sneeze and then the other person has it. We're going to actually talk about the precise mechanisms that cause this passing, because people have to understand how it works. But this is just a general sense of, or a general term to cover any way in which a demon is passed from one person to another. So it can actually be, your brother can pass it to you and things of this sort. That's what we're actually talking about. The next one is, that's which is particular through the family line, through the specific lineage. And this is when you hear people talk about generational spirits, they're usually talking about family spirits. That is, as they're passed within a generational line from one generation to another in the same family. Okay. So this is the kind of general complexus about this, but we want to talk about the different kinds of generational spirits. In the past, they used to talk about what they called a familial. A familial spirit is something that seems to be around an individual. They're just hanging around them all the time. Now, this familial spirit can either be generational in the sense that a child is past this when they're very young, actually from the time of conception. They can be past this familial spirit that's in the family, which is actually the familiar, the familiar spirit, which is the one in the family. But you can also have a familial spirit in which somebody does something, and as a result of that, the spirit attaches themselves to the individual because of what they've done. That familial spirit can become familiar in the sense of that if the person has a particular headship, we'll talk about this in a minute, if they have a headship in the family, they can end up passing that spirit on, or just, again, we'll talk about the mechanisms, then it can get into a familiar line and then get passed. So that's one way. So the primary generational spirit you're talking about is the familiar, that's the one in the family. Okay. But there are another kind of generational spirits. And how do we break them down? It's very simple. Generational spirits, when you're talking about in the general sense, are the same as the guardian spirits that that God assigns. The categories are essentially the same. So you can have a generational spirit as a family is properly constituted within a valid marriage. God assigns a guardian angel to that particular family. But very often, then Satan will assign a demon to it in order to tempt it, and the goal of that demon is to get its foot in the door so that it becomes permanently attached to the line. But it's also, he may do something else to get a different spirit in, because demons are all in a hierarchy, and so the one above will say, get me into this family. So then he sends a little minion out, and the minion tempts him in a manner that will open the door to this other particular kind of spirit. Okay. So so one is over the family. The next can actually be generational. By this I mean in the sense of if you're part of the what they used to call the hippie generation. There's a very specific spirit. We'll talk about that in the fourth conference. There's a very specific spirit that affects that family. So it can be over the whole generation, worldwide. We're not talking about just here, but one that's assigned to the whole generation worldwide.